Delhi's toxic air isn't just a winter problem. If you thought it was limited to a few months, well, think again. A new study reveals that a hidden threat lurking in the skies, known as microplastics, that's what's causing our air to be really polluted, not just in winter, but in summers and shockingly in monsoon as well. These tiny plastic particles, invisible to the naked eye, are now present all year round, even during the monsoon. They are hitching rides on dust, wind, pollution right into our lungs and different body parts. Experts are saying Delhiites inhale thousands of microplastic particles every year. And what exactly is the reason for this silent invasion? What can we do to stop it from happening? And what exactly happens when this plastic enters our body? Take a look at this next report.
We are so used to this thick, choking smog that engulfs Delhi every winter. The kind that turns sun into a faint orange blur, makes your eyes and throat burn, and sends AQI reading into the red zone.
But now, environment observers are surprised at how bad the air quality is even in the summer and shockingly during the monsoon too. According to data from the Central Pollution Control Board, the CPCB, Delhi's average AQI in May of 2024 was 223. In June, it was 179, both well into the moderate to poor category. And monsoon? Well, that isn't much clearer either. July averaged at 96, August at 72, barely straddling the satisfactory air quality. Shocking, right? This is far from what the WHO recommends. The limit there is just 50 for your lungs and your body to seem easy. So what's the reason? Microplastics.
Microplastics, the tiny plastic particles less than 5 millimeter in size. We have heard of them in spreading through our oceans. But a latest study conducted by scientists from the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Pune took samples in the summer and winter months. And what they found was a total of 2,087 microplastics across all particulate samples. And we shouldn't be surprised. Plastic production has grown from 1.5 million tons in 1950s to 403 million tons in 2022. The increased manufacture of single-use plastics has led to the rise in garbage found in terrestrial and aquatic habitats due to inefficient waste management. The thing with microplastic is these particles are so small that they can easily become airborne, hitching a ride on dust, vehicle emissions, or even the wind. Such has been their infiltration in our surroundings that they are found in human brains, in placentas, and even in the bellies of fish deep in the ocean. You might think of summer as a time of clearer skies, but in Delhi, it's the opposite. Intense heat breaks down large plastic debris into smaller microplastics, increasing their concentration in the air. Warmer weather means more people are outside, leading to higher inhalation rates of airborne particles. Summer winds can carry microplastics from industrial areas and landfills into urban centers, spreading pollution over wider areas. You think monsoon would wash away pollutants, but instead, it can spread them further. Rainwater, while it may remove some surface dust, it can also resuspend microplastics, carrying them into water bodies and even back into the air. Storm water can pick up microplastics from roads, construction sites and waste dumps, redistributing them across the city. Though no safe threshold for inhaling microplastics has been established, the study warned that constant exposure to these tiny materials could lead to increased case of bronchitis, pneumonia, lung inflammation, and even cancer. Delhi's microplastic exposure is concerning. Adults inhale between 5.3 to 15.4 microplastic particles daily. This translates to 1,935 to 5,621 particles per year. In comparison, this is higher than even cities like Mexico City, but lower than indoor exposure levels in places like Scotland. This is why this needs attention. Microplastics are often overlooked in pollution discussions, but their pervasive presence and potential health risks make them a critical issue.
So, what's the bottom line here? Well, Delhi's air quality isn't just a winter problem. Delhi had 209 days in 2024 where AQI was just below 200. Its best count since 2018, outside the COVID year, remember. But still, it had no good air days. No air day which was under the WHO limit. Microplastics are making every season hazardous. It's time we recognize this invisible threat and take collective action to protect our health and our environment. Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor for India Today. So what's happening here? What do the presence of microplastics in our body do to us? And also, how can we limit it in the environment? We've got Vimlintu Jha join us from the environmental side to sort of give us an overview of how to actually control this, and also with us Dr. J.C. Khilnani. He's the chairman of the PSRI Institute of Pulmonary. Let me come to you, Dr. Khilnani, first. What exactly is happening to our bodies when these microplastics enter? I was watching a report by NYT earlier this week where they said that even when they were picking up breast milk samples, they were picking up placenta samples, they were picking up a lot of other things. The person who was doing the entire detailed report said now it's a given that microplastics are going to be found in each part of our body. So should we be scared? Should we be worried? What is the way to limit this?
So, Sonal, we are actually terrified, not scared, but it's nothing new that we did not know. This study is an eye-opener, but we always knew that plastics in city of Delhi and all over would be causing havoc. Unlike the air pollution, which leads to immediate sore throat, coughs, smarting of eyes, asthmatics will have attacks, they'll come to the emergency, there'll be more ICU admission, more ventilator. Particles will act slowly, actually. And this is absolutely man-made, absolutely man-made, and you have already shown in your reports. It does enter through the lung as well as in the gastrointestinal tract, because what we eat, what we drink, don't we find utensils saying they are micro-safe? They are plastic things. Just because it's written in the micro-safe, we conveniently heat our food. That's only a simple thing. Don't worry, we are not drinking water in the plastic bottle thinking that, we are having a safe water. And what about buying vegetables and all those things in a plastic, polythene bags? Where do they go ultimately? Ultimately, they go into our water, they go into our food, they go into our agriculture. What it does to us, something are known, something is not known. We know that it causes
Okay, let's quickly fix that line with Dr. Khilnani. Let me go to Vimlintu Jha then. Vimlintu, the discussion on air pollution has become the discussion on plastic. Who would have thought that this day would come? But here we are discussing how plastic, every piece of it, is now responsible for our bodily health or our physical health as well. Are you surprised at all by this study, or this is something that has been spoken about?
So, Sonal, I think there's been several studies on this. Of course, this one is very specific to Delhi, and therefore it's very, very alarming. And also the reason because Delhi already is a toxic city in that sense. It's a city that already has such alarming levels of air pollution. And all this while there were these studies that were actually done in London and Paris, which relatively, or perhaps is much better than the data points that we actually have vis-a-vis air pollution of Delhi. Also, all this while, every time we spoke about microplastic, largely we were talking about marine litter. We were actually talking about our waterways getting contaminated by microplastic and therefore our entire food chain in that sense. This, in many ways, is for the first time asking us those difficult questions that all this while, if you were thinking that it's only dust that is responsible for almost 30% of your air pollution, or perhaps vehicular emissions, which is responsible for almost 40 to 50% of the air pollution. Imagine if there's so much of garbage all around. And by the way, Sonal, interesting, this study was done in this area called Lodi Road. And that's all the data points have actually come from one of the cleanest areas of Delhi.
Yes.
Imagine if a study like this was actually done in Anand Vihar or perhaps in Bhalaswa or in some other neighborhood, which was not as posh, as rich, as maintained, as plastic free or plastic sore free as Lodi Road in that sense. So it's almost a great study, of course, but imagine reality of this study that we're talking about. But the main point for all of us here is that when we know that there's a study almost which has a government stamp or an academic stamp, also say, for example, an Indian educational research study, because all this while, if it was a Lancet or someone else telling us, then we thought that this was perhaps an international propaganda to shame Delhi in that sense. Here we have our own researchers and scientists and the scientist community telling us that our air actually has microplastic, and air of Lodi Road has microplastic, and through the year, and not just in winter in that sense. And interestingly, this study also talks about the fact that most of this transmission, this microplastic, or the reason why microplastic is able to go from point A to point B is because it carries largely through dust particles and of course through other vehicular emissions and other things. Now, therefore, what are the action points? What are the key takeaways?
Just hold on to that. Just hold on to that, Mr. Jha, because I want to, when it comes to plastic, the conversation is not an easy one. While you were speaking, we were running graphics of what constitutes to microplastics. And I'll request my producers to play that graphic up again, and it'll tell you the composition that the study also said. It said about 40% of it was coming in from polyester and the rest of the stuff, right? Now, these are in your clothes, these are in your bags, these are in the curtains that you put in your house, these are in the bottles that you use in your tiffin. Once you start looking at those figures, it feels as if this is a lost cause. It feels as if there is just no way in which we can escape it.
No, we should, because there's a difference between indoor microplastic or indoor air contamination and outdoor air contamination.
Explain
a lot of
that.
things, the clothes that we actually wear, and the microplastic that it carries versus, and the food that we eat is one thing. But right now, most alarming, the data that we're talking about is transmission through wind or transmission due to heat. And a lot of that is attributed to outdoor this thing. So at the end of the day, when we talk about who has to therefore stop this menace, where does it actually stop and what are those action points? It has to be somewhere. First of all, do we even measure it in our country in terms of our air quality indicators or air quality monitors that we actually have in Delhi? And Delhi has the most amount of air quality monitors, and other towns don't even have so-called landfill management, or in fact, many cities don't even have a landfill. Imagine the plight of microplastic or open burning of plastic and contamination of our waterways and our airways in that sense. So it's a very grim situation. I think one of the first things that we need to do is that make microplastic, like right now, we look at PM 2.5 and PM 10, and only these two parameters as main parameters of air quality measurement or / assessment. And therefore we will, and by the way, there's PM 2.5 is too big a particulate matter that we talk about. Globally,
this is PM1.
Things have evolved to 0.5 to 0.25 in that sense. Because, at the end of the day, PM10 is big, PM2 is smaller, and PM 0.5 and 0.25. And here we're talking about microplastic, which is 5 mm and 0.5 mm and lesser, and nanoplastic. Like right now, we talk about microplastic, and there's something called nanoplastic also. And this is one study. And therefore, what does the government of our day derive out of this study is very, very important, both from an environment point of view and public health point of view. I'm sure Dr. Saab will tell you, and Dr. Saab has been talking about the impact of air pollution on our children and the elderly. but it's the air pollution impact is a composite of when we say why does cancer occur because of lung infection or air pollution is primarily because of a lot of these toxins which are not even measured / assessed by our air quality monitors, and therefore
Yeah.
there's no air quality monitoring / and therefore mitigation regime that we have in the country.
This seems like a doomed conversation for me, frankly. I don't know where we can even begin. But we need to mull on that for a little while I go to Dr. Khilani one more time. Dr. Khilani, I don't think a lot of people even understand the concept of air pollution during summer and monsoon, which is why we're bringing out the story. People think abhi to bahut acha mausam ho raha hai, only till you get down to, like Vimlendu is saying, that A, it's not recorded, and B, then you ask yourself, why are there so many infections happening? Then you ask yourself why people are falling sick more frequently and for longer durations. Then you have to ask yourself questions like why in the summer people are breaking down. Then you have to ask yourself why so many people are having strokes, etc. Have you seen a direct relationship between air quality going bad and patients in your hospital across, say, gender and across age barrier? Is that something that you're seeing in your hospital?
Yeah, there is something called short-term effect and long-term effect. The short-term effect we see during the October, November, and December when we have more patients with pneumonia, more patients with viral infection, more patients in the ICU, more patients on ventilator. But I want to bring another issue. Why 40% of the cancers or 50% of the lung cancers are occurring in non-smokers? Well, I was studying 90-95% of cancer used to occur only who used to smoke. Why there is the cancer registry of India shows that there are more cancers of the breast, more cancers of the female reproductive system. Why there is higher level of infertility? If you go into all these causes, the toxins in our blood and which goes through the air as well as to the food. Now, when we talk about plastics, it's not only the plastics. When the plastic is burned, there's a lot of
Yeah.
elements like zinc, aluminum, silicon, and thousands
All of
of
that is
toxic
becoming this
material
really
goes
toxic
into our
cocktail that all
system.
of us are constantly
It,
sort of
it
breathing
affects
in.
our
Yeah.
endocrine system.
Yeah.
Don't we see 50% of our women are taking thyroxine, which was not there before, and this is everywhere, including the breast milk contains these toxins, including the plastic.
Yeah.
So there
Sir,
has
I
to
have
be a
last few
global.
minutes. I'm so sorry I'm interjecting. I have last few minutes and I really want to get some solutions from Vimlendu here. Vimlendu, like I said, I have my air purifier on in my house throughout the year now, but not everybody does that. In studios, in cars, etc., you can't live in or constantly with a mask on your face all year round. So what can a common man do, understanding fully well what is happening? Very quickly.
Sonal, two things, Sonal. One is we cannot never have private solution to a public problem. Don't look for a private solution for a public problem because you'll be doing great disservice to it, because that's what we've been doing. We've been, when our water got terrible, we actually fix these ROs and things. When our air is bad, we're putting air purifiers. The other is it's a myth. You can't be walking with a cylinder of a clean air in a playground or in a cinema hall or on the road in that sense. I think it's high time that we have advocacy around it. We have those measures. And when we know that the sources of plastic, and we also know methods of safe disposal of plastic, when we so-called on paper already have a law banning single-use plastic, where the hell is this plastic coming from if there's a ban that exists on ground?
Yeah.